When Camille Harper stepped onto Elevator Air Flight 407, she was soaring, both literally and figuratively, at the height of a career that had shattered ceilings and silenced doubters. A first-class passenger by right, not privilege, Camille was a powerhouse entrepreneur, the kind of woman who carved her legacy with grit, intellect, and unapologetic presence. But before the plane would touch down, she'd be pulled from her seat, stripped of dignity, and shamed in front of an audience that once applauded her. All because someone decided she didn't belong. What they didn't know, what they would come to regret, was that they had crossed the wrong woman. This wasn't just about a seat on a plane. It was about power, control, and what happens when unchecked injustice is cloaked in protocol. By the time this ordeal reached its conclusion, reputations would shatter, careers would crumble, and the world would watch as Camille Harper flipped the entire narrative. The question was never whether she would fight back. It was how devastating her counterpunch would be. Camille eased into seat 1C, adjusting the ivory blazer she'd chosen for its sharp lines and commanding presence. The soft aroma of leather and fresh espresso mingled in the air, casting the first-class cabin in an ambience of curated calm. For a fleeting moment, she allowed herself to relax. But the atmosphere shifted quickly. Across the aisle in 2D, a man with a tailored navy suit and a knowing smirk glanced her way. Jackson Trent. His smirk curled with the familiarity of someone who had underestimated her before and lost. "Well, I'll be," Jackson said, his voice as smooth as it was condescending. "Didn't expect to see you in this tier." Camille met his gaze, her tone even and unbothered. "Elevator doesn't run its passenger list by you, do they?" He chuckled under his breath. "Seems like their standards are slipping." Before she could reply, a flight attendant approached. Her name tag read Carly Jensen. Her posture was rigid, her expression carefully blank, but Camille sensed the stiffness behind the mask. "Ma'am, could I see your boarding pass again?" Carly asked, her tone light, but off-key. Camille raised an eyebrow. "I scanned it at the gate. Is there a problem?" "Just a routine check," Carly answered, avoiding direct eye contact. "We've had some discrepancies with the manifest." Through the corner of her eye, Camille spotted the pilot, Captain Ray Donovan, lingering outside the cockpit. His arms were crossed, his face unreadable. Camille handed over her phone, watching Carly's fingers twitch as she scrolled. A slight clench, a barely perceptible pause. Then she handed it back. "Everything checks out," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. As Carly walked away, a quiet unease crept up Camille's spine. Across the aisle, an older woman, Martha Jennings, her accent polished and her pearls unmistakably old money, leaned closer and whispered, "Don't let them shake you." "I've seen this before." Camille nodded. "They'll have to do more than this to rattle me." But the reprieve didn't last. Just minutes later, Carly returned. This time, a tall man with a clipped mustache and a name tag that read Greg Dalton stood at her side. "Miss Harper," Carly said, voice suddenly colder. "We have a situation with your seat assignment." Camille didn't flinch. "You just verified it. It appears the seat was double booked," Greg added. "We'll need to relocate you while we sort it out." "To economy," Camille said flatly. "That's what this is." Jackson let out a quiet, self-satisfied chuckle. "Guess that upgrade didn't stick, huh?" Camille's eyes flashed, but before she could respond, Martha Jennings stood up. "This is absurd," she declared. "Why is she being asked to move? Why wasn't this caught before boarding?" Greg and Carly exchanged an uneasy glance. "Mrs. Jennings," Carly said, tone defensive now, "we ask that you not escalate the situation." Camille took a deep breath. She could either fold quietly, or she could remind them who she was. She chose the latter. Reaching into her purse, she withdrew her phone and calmly opened a document. "I need to make a call." "You won't have service at this altitude," Carly said with a knowing smirk. Camille turned the screen around. Displayed prominently was her Elevator Air investor profile. Name, shareholder ID, stake percentage. The smirk dropped from Carly's face. Greg's posture stiffened. Even Jackson's grin faltered. Would you like to explain again how my seat was accidentally double-booked? Camille asked, her voice composed, yet unmistakably lethal. Just then, the intercom crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen," came the captain's voice. "We're cruising at 38,000 feet, and we've encountered a security concern. As a precaution, we're conducting an internal review." A hush fell over the cabin. Whispers sparked like static. Camille's heartbeat surged. They were setting her up? Carly reappeared, this time with a uniformed man by her side. His badge read Air Marshal Devin Roth. "Miss Harper," Carly said, the faux empathy dripping from her voice. "We need you to come with us." Camille stiffened. "Where are we going?" "Routine security evaluation," Devin said, his voice flat and official. Jackson leaned back, that grin now smug. "Told you, Camille. First class isn't really your scene." Camille rose slowly, deliberately. She wasn't about to let them make her look like a threat, because that's what they were counting on. "Security evaluation," she repeated. "Is that the term we're using now for corporate cover-ups?" Devin didn't flinch. Camille lifted her phone again, showing the same investor credentials. "Here's a question for you, Marshall. Do you really want to be the one who forcibly removes a shareholder from a fully paid, legally booked seat? Based on vague, unverifiable accusations." For the first time, Devin hesitated, but Camille wasn't finished. She turned to the rest of the cabin. "You're all witnessing this," she said, her voice steady but commanding. "An airline that boasts premium service is trying to eject an investor from her seat without cause. If it can happen to me, it can happen to you." The tension cracked. Phones came out. A few passengers began recording. Martha Jennings was already standing. "She's right," she declared. "This isn't about safety. This is about targeting someone they don't like." A wave of murmurs followed. Others nodded. Even some who had been silent began whispering among themselves. Phones raised, eyes wide. Camille looked back at Devin. "Still want to go through with this?" The marshal glanced at Carly, then Greg. The momentum had shifted. What had been a setup was unraveling in real time. Public perception was now a loaded gun, and Camille had pulled the trigger. "The captain has already issued the statement," Carly blurted. "It's out of our hands." Camille smiled, slow and deliberate. "Then you might want to call him back. Because the second anyone lays a hand on me, this footage goes viral, and your airline will not survive the fallout." There was a beat of silence, so deep you could hear the engines humming. Then Devin stepped back. "She stays in her seat." Carly's breath hitched. She looked to Greg, but he said nothing. The battle was over. Camille returned to her seat, smoothing the fabric of her blazer, her poise untouched. They had tried to erase her, humiliate her, discredit her, but they had chosen the wrong woman.